And this is the aging process. We call it the cycles of 7 and 8, 7 for women and 8 for men. And they will coordinate not only the physical development, like puberty and adulthood, etc., they also coordinate a certain psycho-emotional developments. Obviously, a child does not see the world in the same way that a person at puberty sees the world, or a person who is in his 20s, or a person who is in his 70s or 80s. We see the world differently. And these differences are coordinated by the extraordinary channels. This will be also sort of developing and exploring later. Now, what is important is that throughout medical history, the emphasis has been put on the importance of Shen in basically the disease nemesis. Already in the Link Shu chapter 8, there is all diseases are rooted in the Shen. And in chapter 54, it describes actually the development of the sectors of the psyche. And that Shen, as we mentioned it earlier in a different form, is that it seeks harmony and perpetuation of life. Now, the 5 sections of the psyche, always remembering that the Chinese medicine is a 3-dimensional medicine. And here, always keep in mind that when we speak about the organs in Chinese medicine, we always include the other spheres. Our Western thinking has a tendency to look only at the physical, and unfortunately forgetting the emotional and the mind and the spirit. Now, here, for example, what I've done, I've brought in the behavioral approach by the subtle body, which is the mind, and the spirit are the thoughts, represent the thoughts. The emotional body are the feelings in the body that we actually feel, so we call them the emotions. And then the physical body is the actions that we take. But if we consider also from a perspective of psychosomatics, we clearly see that the thoughts are going to generate the feelings, which will have specific physical actions. And I remind you also that in the Hindu traditions, speaking about karma, which basically is cause and effect, karmic deeds are not only actions, even thoughts are karmic. You have bad thoughts about somebody or something, this is already has karmic consequences. So this is very important to understand that when we consider psychosomatics, we start with the thought system. At least this is, interestingly, under our own control. We can say, okay, we cannot control the feelings, we cannot control the action, but thoughts we can control. And this is referred to in Chinese medicine as the cultivation of the mind. And this is a part actually we have access to. Now, to finish this first description, it's the 5 sections of the psyche. This is described in chapter 13 of the Link Shu. The name of this chapter is Ben Shen. The root, Ben Shen is the root of the Shen. And Chinese have not given these 5 attributes of the psyche a global name. They have just named them. They call them Shen, Hun, Yi, Po, and Zhi. They haven't actually grouped them. So this has been, the French school was referring to them as the Ben Shen. Then the Machocha, or the English school, started referring to them as the 5 spirits. Further, Elisabeth Rochat, who is a current French sinologist, and with Father Lard, they have translated all the medical texts. And she calls them the wills, the 5 wills, the will of each organ. So we will be using these terms. I don't know which one you prefer. It doesn't matter. There's no consensus about it. But it's even easier if we just use the Chinese terms. Now, each organ is going to transform the energy and use it in a particular way. We know, for example, that the liver has all the different functions, move qi, store blood, manage muscles, etc., etc. But part of this energy is going to be used in a specific psycho-emotional manifestation, as well as specific mental functions. And further, even some spiritual aspects. So when we study each of these spirits, let's use the word spirit in English. I think schools is much more common, so you know what we're talking about. We will be speaking about the 5 spirits. We will be looking at these different dimensions that they have: psycho-emotional, mental, and spiritual. Now, what is important also is 5 in Chinese medicine, but the term 5, once again, I underline the point, it's not a numerical value, it's symbolic. 5 is how the world is structured, the 5 elements. It actually is 4 elements and a center, or 4 directions and a center. This is how the world is structured. And otherwise, it's also how we are structured. And it's always represented by this model of a cross. Later, how we interact, my microcosm interacts with the outer world, is the correspondence system. And that is represented in Chinese, they have given it a name, is Wu Xing, the 5 movements. And it's represented on a circle. There's often a confusion between the two, that the 5 elements have been placed on a circle, and then you get weird things. For example, here, how the world is structured, the world is structured with 4 directions. We don't have 5 directions. When you place it on a circle, you have south, east, north, and then center. A center is on a circle, which is already very strange. Or the 4 seasons. We have 4 seasons. We don't have 5 seasons. So they invented a 5th season. They call it the Indian summer. I have no idea what is Indian summer. Is it monsoon season in India? Or is it American Indians that have a special summer? I don't know what that means. But actually, the earth has its position in the center, and this earth is allowing for each season to turn into the next. So it's actually active at the beginning of each new season. There's the influence of the earth. This model has to be understood as how we are structured internally. This is why the psyche also is represented on this model and not on a circle, which is the Wu Xing, the 5 movements.